Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Kevin L. Jackson here on Supply Chain Now. And today, I've decided to take the lead chair away from Scott Luton to host this special event. I am so happy to have Miss Brandi Boatner on the show. Hey, Brandi, how you doing today?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, God, this is going to be fun. You know, Brandi is an award-winning digital communications, public relations, social media professional, and a prolific public speaker based in the Big Apple, New York City. Currently, she's a member of IBM's corporate affairs function, supporting global influencer marketing for IBM's consulting business. She helps drive market education, brand awareness, and to build IBM's reputation in artificial intelligence for the enterprise and the hybrid cloud. Today, she's going to help us decode digital. Is that a good thing to do, Brandi?
For us, yes.
I tell you, this is one of the biggest issues when it comes to digital transformation. You know, how do you communicate that? Not to your customers, to your partners, to your audience. But before we get deep into that, I want to just remind everyone, we're here. This is the second Monday of the month. This is the Digital Transformers Buzz, where we discuss a variety of news and developments across the global supply chain. And we are going to talk about supply chain news today, but more important, we're going to talk about communications of digital transformation. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, you really have to talk about this. So I want you to talk back to us in the comments, whether you're tuned in on LinkedIn or YouTube, X, Facebook, Twitch, no matter, because this is an important conversation. How do you talk? But before we get started with the news, I want to make sure you don't forget the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index for first quarter 2024. That was released just a few weeks ago, and it provides key insights to across the domestic freight market. So we'll drop the link so you can register to get this free resource every quarter. There are also 2 blockbuster webinars coming up this week. The Automation ROI, Solving the Top 3 Operational Challenges, is coming up on Wednesday, July 17th with Linda Grady and Will Mansard of Bastion Solutions. And we also have strategies for aligning business planning with supply chain design. And that's on Thursday, July 18th. Mariana Vajrovich, the Manager, Operations Research and Network Optimization at GAF, and Nari Viswanathan, Senior, the Director of Supply Chain Strategy at our friends over there at Cooper. And Scott will never, ever forgive me if I don't remind everyone to read the recent edition of With That Said. And they talk about one of my favorite topics, good food. Good food, great people. And I just love the quote from Julia Childs in that show. People who love to eat are always the best people. So Brandi, do you like food?
Absolutely. Born and raised in New Orleans, hometown of great food.
Oh no, absolutely. I grew up on the Gulf Coast also. I was down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, so I would go to New Orleans all the time for some great food.
Good food.
So, Brandi, you ready to go?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. So, our first story is from all places, Shopify. You would say, why are we talking about Shopify? Yes, they have a supply chain too. In this article, they are helping everyone understand the digital supply chain. Unlike the physical supply chain, the digital supply chain provides real-time visibility, automation, and collaboration, which allows for proactive decision making. It enables your company to adjust production, source suppliers, or reroute shipments to minimize delays. You know, supply chains will traditionally rely on manual linear processes between their suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, and customers. But a digital supply chain integrates some key steps through advanced software platforms. And the benefits of this digital supply chain include added visibility and transparency, increased agility, responsiveness, and better customer service. The benefits, however, do come with some important risks, including cybersecurity vulnerabilities, data privacy, protection concerns, and it can have a high investment and implementation costs. So Brandi, we've talked a bit about the technical aspects of a digital supply chain. And one thing I want to point out that this article was actually on the corporate blog site for Shopify. So one question is that from a communications strategy, how does a blog fit into a digitally transformed or a company that's trying to think digitally in that communication strategy?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Kevin. And it's like, how do you think digital first? And your company blog is one tactic for how you can communicate what you said, talking about the digital supply chain. That's one way you can, talk about it, generate awareness about it. Hey, this is what we're doing. Learn more here. Another tactic that you could use if you're thinking digital first, because you said something as you were reading that article, you said, here are the things that they're doing to deliver, an excellent customer experience. Well, when you're thinking digital first, okay, the blog is one tactic. Well, what about your employees? Because think about how they are delivering an excellent customer experience for someone who's experiencing your brand. So what would it look like if one of your subject matter experts or one of your thought leaders or one of your executives wrote a blog, whether they used a platform like LinkedIn, whether they use a company blog, whatever, that maybe they have their own platform. Sometimes in LinkedIn it'll say like click on my website, or it might say read more here. That's another way to deliver the content digitally. To think digital first is, okay, I too can deliver an excellent customer experience. So it's almost like not you're the supply chain, but you're thinking about how you're delivering an excellent experience digitally to someone who might consume, whether it's the company blog or going to your LinkedIn to get similar information.
You sound like you're saying that there's a different way of thinking with respect to the voice of the company. Is this an important, aspect of thinking digitally?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the voice of the company, because the voice of your company, you have to make sure you have your brand voice, and everyone's brand voice is going to be different. You have to stay true to your mission and values. So again, what I'm saying is, from a digital first mindset, you have to think about how your brand or how the news or how your product or whatever the thing is going to be experienced or consumed by your customer, your target audience, or even your employees. All I'm saying is digital, having a digital first mindset. It's like, oh, well, we shared this on the company blog. That's one way. Are we having, an expert or a subject matter expert or a thought leader or an executive also share in some way?
Reinforcing each other.
Yes.
You mentioned something there, and it kind of ties into the next article. You're talking about what executives do, because in item 2, US Wire talks about innovative leadership and how that is driving digital transformation in supply chain and logistics. And they highlight the fact that leaders must adopt innovative strategies to harness the power of digital technologies. And one thing they actually, focus on is that visionary leaders have to set a clear direction for the organization and build a digital first culture. What does that mean? What does it really mean to be digital first?
Yeah, well, again, not speaking to the culture piece because everyone has their how a leader's going to build their own culture. So this is not so thinking digital first.
Yeah.
The landscape has changed. Post-pandemic, the digital landscape has changed. We've got new players, the way information is consumed, the way information is shared, the sources of information that may not have seemed credible or a reliable source are now hugely reliable sources. So the landscape has changed. In order for, and this applies to anyone, I can't necessarily say visionary leader, but anyone, as you're thinking, okay, the landscape, who are the players? How do I meet people where they are with the right information? What platforms do people want to receive that information? These are all things that a digital first mindset, these are the things you need to think about. The technology and the platforms are changing so much, even so much so, Kevin, that the platforms themselves are transforming, like literally before our eyes. Like they're coming up with new names. They're saying, I don't want to be known as a social platform anymore. I want to be known as a connector. And I'm like, but aren't you still like on social, connecting people socially who do social things? But you say you want to be. So we're seeing this evolution of the platforms themselves changing. So for any leader, for anyone operating in today's digital landscape, you gotta know the players. You have to keep up, and it is moving quickly. Woo! It is moving so fast. But again, changing your mindset and kind of going back to the whole theme of decoding digital, it is so imperative to be able to do that today, just to stay relevant and, like I said, to meet your customers, your audience where they are, because there are many things happen in 60 seconds digitally. Many things. Question is, do you know what's happening, and are you a part of those many things that are happening in 60 seconds on digital?
Okay, so you're getting scary now, right? Because you're talking about change, and this is why people don't want to even think about digital transformation, because humans are naturally kind of afraid of change. So a personal question for me, because I run into this all the time. How do you keep up with this change? This is like, your bread and butter.
Yes. I get this question a lot too, Kevin. People ask me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're in social and digital, you work with influencers. How do you keep up with, the various things? So one thing, as you said, it's not scary in terms of change. It's uncomfortable, sure. But the only constant in life is change. That is the only constant. We know that things are going to change. When you operate in this landscape, I kind of mentioned you have to know who the players are. Part of like the fun, of my job and what I do is that I know things are going to change, that I know something is going to change. If you would have told me 3 years ago that Threads would have been a platform, I would have been like, no way, that's not going to happen. Because again, we're coming right out of the pandemic. It was a different time. It was a different mindset. Then things happened with another social platform. Whoop, here comes Threads. Oh, okay. I didn't see that. This is, where we are. If we look at other social platforms that have taken, precedence, where a lot of a certain particular age group, audience group now goes to said social media platform for news as a credible source. If you would have said to me that platform is going to be where most people get their, I'd be like, wait, what? That's a credible news source to get your that rhymes something with like a clock. That is
not talking about TP.
All I'm saying is like, oh my gosh, that's a credible news source. So the beauty of being able to work in this space and look at this as a communications professional, as a digital communications professional, is to see the trends and the patterns and how, like I said, how people consume, how people share. I remember the days of social media. You probably do, Kevin, because you were an early adopter and just excellent with social media. But I remember the days when social was about a lot about the content, amplifying the content, pushing out the content, creating the content, capturing the like literally, you've seen the articles. Content is king, content is queen, all the things. Well, notice there has been this shift, and companies can say this as well from a digital transformation standpoint. Now it's about sharing not just the content, the experience behind the content, right? What was the experience? What, going back to customer, is it personalized? Is it relatable to me? Can I see myself in the thing? Does this speak to me? You know, someone says that hit different. Are companies today hitting different with their digital transformation? If you're not thinking digital first, think about that reaction that we have on social, and that shift that we've gone from sharing the content to amplifying the content to now the experience, how I'm experiencing the content. That is, if that's not transformation, I don't know what is. And we should just pack it up. We should just pack up this whole thing. If that's not transformation.
It sounds like, a few years ago when, car manufacturers stopped being car manufacturers and started delivering the experience of moving from one location to another. Wow.
Exactly. Wow. And we've always been in an experience economy. There's a book called The Experience Economy I read when I was in college. It's a great book. But do you remember the things like Rainforest Cafe? Yeah. That was an experience that you thought you were like in the actual rainforest. We've always had this, but I feel today it's just heightened and it's just hyper accelerated as to what the experience and how social and digital delivers on that.
Okay. So this third article, I can't wait to hear what you got to say, because the title of the article actually asks a question. It says, "What is a digital supply chain network?" It was kind of interesting is that they draw a parallel between social networks and supply chain networks. And they say that, digital media platforms made it easier for us to communicate and collaborate with our social networks, as they acted as a turbocharger for what we could already do through other means, I guess IRL in real life. So executives really have to understand that their company needs to operate within these networks to stay competitive. In other words, to minimize risk, increase efficiency, reduce cost, and capitalize on opportunities. So with this, you got me wondering, what is a social media platform? You said yourself they're changing their names, they're changing their missions. I remember Clubhouse, the audio only.
Yes.
Right?
Where is it? Where is it today?
Okay. Aren't these platforms are transforming themselves?
That's right. It's a great question and a great lead into what we were just. I mean, it's almost like you're reading my mind, Kevin. It's a nice seamless into. So interesting that you bring this up. So with that, the definition of social media network or social media, like we said, it has changed, it has evolved, and the landscape is different today because the channels are fragmented. It's hard to reach because it's okay, do I have, what am I doing on TikTok? What am I doing on LinkedIn? What am I doing on Instagram? Then you have misinformation, disinformation woven into the channels too. So then there's bad behavior, there's negative agents, there's all these things happening. What's so interesting with what you said is at the Cannes Lion, Festival, International Festival of Creativity, Pinterest, the chief revenue officer at Pinterest came out and he said, Pinterest is not a social media platform. And I was like, wait, what? What did he just say? That Pinterest is not a social, he said, it's not a social media platform. We're not a social media network. He said, Pinterest is the antidote to traditional social media. Now, Kevin, first I was like, I didn't know we were sick, because that's what I think antidote exactly, that you need an antidote to, like. So first I was like, this is news to me.
You're
that
saying,
it's the
I
antidote.
gotta go write my resume again.
Right? I was like, okay. Then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If you're the antidote to traditional social media, does that mean you're a digital social you're the modern? I'm not sure. If I look at other platforms like Snap, Snap came out with a Super Bowl ad this year in February at Super Bowl, and it was like, more Snap, less social. I think that was their tagline. No, less social media, more Snap.
Okay.
Aren't you a social media channel? So just the very point of how do we define, they are saying that they're moving away from being a platform, going back to what I said about experiences, right? Or the antidote for traditional. Well, I see, all the pins that people put on Pinterest and, shop and e-commerce. And so how are people experiencing the platform if I don't call myself a social media network? But in my professional opinion, you're still a social media.
You are the professional.
So it's really interesting to see, like I said, the digital transformation. We're talking about these articles, but the digital transformation of these networks themselves and what the platforms think of themselves. Reddit says the same thing. We don't think of ourselves as a social network. Okay, what do you guys think? Yeah.
It doesn't matter what everybody else says.
They don't think that they're a social network. So it's just really interesting to see how audiences, and again, are experiencing these platforms, and then how the platforms themselves are defining what it is that they do.
Okay. So you teed us up for this final article. Okay. And it comes from this little known company called IBM.
Small startup. This is a small startup. Small startup.
I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
No. But anyway, it kind of talks about procurement leaders, okay? And it's entitled, Procurement is a Pressure Cooker. And I can agree with that, because they got to deal with product components, transportation, this insatiable appetite for information, details, right? But you mentioned in your last comment about misinformation and disinformation. And what the article talks about, and it says that generative AI tools can help procurement teams prepare for a future characterized by uncertainty. Isn't that the problem, that some of this misinformation is actually causing this uncertainty? And it warns that these chief procurement officers can't underestimate the potential of generative AI with respect to steering their teams towards higher value activities. They say it's very important to apply generative AI to predictive spend and sourcing. So in a spin on this, how does generative AI fit into a digital first strategy?
Yeah, no, it's excellent piece of thought leadership. I recommend everyone take a read if they can. But using Gen AI, because we talk about it all the time, but if you look at it, like, to your point, from a digital first strategy, from a customer strategy, you use it to augment the things you're already doing to get closer to the customer or your audience, to better understand them, understand what their needs are, and how you can help them. How can Gen AI help you get from point A to point B, or help you solve a business outcome? You use it, like I said, to augment, not replace, not solely depend on. But again, thinking digitally, you have to meet people where they are. So if they're on a particular platform or they're on a particular channel, what's the experience you are delivering there, right? How are you connecting? How are you making this creative? How are you making this relatable? How are you making this come to life? All of these things, again, if you all the things that you reference with the digital supply chain, and think about what we are delivering in terms of information, or how we're communicating, all of the things that you've covered in the articles that we've shared in the buzz. If you're not thinking digital first, You're already
Wow.
behind. Already behind.
So decoding digital really means delivering that experience. Oh, this
There
is
you
great.
go.
Unfortunately, it's like time for us to wrap up this episode. I could keep on. This has been so much fun.
Right?
But yeah. Well, one more thing before we leave here.
Yeah.
What is your top recommendation for thinking digital first?
Don't be afraid to think digital first. Make sure you keep up with, because it changes very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And, digital today, tomorrow, future. Digital today, tomorrow, future. Don't be afraid. Keep up. Put your finger on the pulse.
I got to write that one down. Thank you, Brandi. This has been great.
Thank you, Kevin.
And before we leave, how can people catch up with you if they want to learn more about how to think digital first?
My digital platform of choice is LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I check it every single day, probably more than I should, but that is my digital experience platform of choice.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much. I know we're connected, so why don't you connect, Brandi? So I really appreciate you joining me today. And please come back again. We're going to talk more. So with that, I would like to repeat the mantra that Scott leaves us with at the end of every show. It's all about actions, not words. Please take something you've heard today to improve your future. So in closing, please do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. We'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.